Hi, I'm Nicole. I showed up to our family reunion dinner wearing a thrift store dress while my brother Tyler flashed his Rolex and talked about closing another six-figure deal. His wife Vanessa laughed when I mentioned working overtime at the call center, then posted a photo captioned, "Family Charity Case," before dessert even arrived. 3 days later, they sent me a video from their Arizona vacation, driving past what they thought was just another luxury complex. Tyler's voice came through the speaker, dripping with sarcasm. "Look, Nick, this is what success looks like. Maybe one day you'll rent a studio here if you save up." I texted back one sentence. "Building 6, Unit 203. That's mine. So are the other 46 properties you just passed." The dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Silence for the first time in 15 years. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The rain hit my windshield in sheets that Thursday evening, the kind of October storm that turns Portland streets into rivers of brake lights and frustration. I sat in my 13-year-old Honda Civic, engine idling outside the Copper House, watching couples in wool coats dash from valet parking to the restaurant entrance. My phone buzzed with the third reminder from my mother. Family dinner at 7. Tyler has big news. Don't be late. The message carried that particular tone she'd perfected over the years, the one that said your presence is required even though we all know you're the disappointment. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. The dress I wore came from a consignment shop in southeast Portland, navy blue with small buttons down the front, clean but obviously not new, obviously not expensive. My hair pulled back in a simple ponytail because I'd come straight from my shift at Cascade Customer Solutions, the call center where I'd worked for the past 8 years answering complaints about cable bills and internet outages. $16 an hour. No benefits. The kind of job that makes people's eyes slide past you at gatherings when they ask what you do for a living. I grabbed my purse, an old leather bag my grandmother had given me before she passed, and made the sprint from parking lot to entrance. The hostess smiled with practiced politeness as I gave her my mother's name, then led me through a dining room that smelled of grilled salmon and expensive wine. Past tables where people celebrated promotions and anniversaries, past a bar where men in tailored shirts discussed market trends, to a corner booth where my family had already settled in. Tyler saw me first. My older brother, 38 to my 33, sat at the head of the table like he always did, even when it wasn't his house or his reservation. His suit probably cost more than my rent. Charcoal gray, perfectly fitted, the kind of thing you get when you work as a senior director at a tech consulting firm downtown. Vanessa sat beside him, blonde highlights fresh from the salon, nails done in that French manicure style that requires weekly maintenance. Her dress looked like something from a boutique window, the kind of place where they buzz you in and offer champagne while you shop. My mother waved from across the table, her smile warm but edged with that familiar worry she carried whenever I was in the same room as Tyler. My father sat next to her, already studying the wine list, his way of avoiding the tension that always crackled between his children. 2 empty chairs waited, one for me, one for Tyler's announcement apparently. "There she is," Tyler said, not standing, barely looking up from his phone. "The working woman. How was the call center today, Nick? Save anyone from the horror of slow internet?" Vanessa laughed, that high tinkling sound she made whenever Tyler said something she thought was clever. "Oh, stop, honey. Nicole works very hard." The words sounded kind, but her eyes did a quick scan of my outfit, my shoes, my purse, cataloging and dismissing in one practiced sweep. I slid into my seat, placing my purse on the floor, folding my hands on the table. Traffic was terrible, I said to no one in particular, the kind of neutral statement that might redirect the conversation. My mother reached across and squeezed my hand. "We ordered you a water, sweetheart. The server will be back in a moment for drinks." She meant well. She always meant well. But there was something in the way she said it, as if ordering water was the safe, expected choice for me, while Tyler had already requested a bottle of wine that cost more than my grocery budget for a month. The server appeared, a young woman with a professional smile, and took our orders. Tyler ordered for the table, choosing appetizers and entrees like he was hosting rather than joining. When she left, he leaned back in his chair, that satisfied posture of someone about to deliver news they know will impress. So, he said, drawing out the word, I wanted everyone together tonight because Vanessa and I have some exciting updates. He reached for her hand, and she beamed, the kind of coordinated couple moment they'd probably practiced. First, the promotion came through. I'm now Executive Director of Strategic Solutions. Corner office. Equity package. The whole deal. My mother clapped, genuine delight on her face. My father raised his glass. That's wonderful, son. Really wonderful. Tyler nodded, accepting the praise like a king receiving tribute. And second, he continued, glancing at Vanessa, we're finally pulling the trigger on the Scottsdale place. 3,000 square feet, golf course views, heated pool. We've been looking for 2 years, and we found the perfect property. Closing next month. Vanessa practically glowed. It's in this amazing development, all custom homes, right near the best shopping and restaurants. We'll use it for winter escapes, long weekends. Eventually maybe retire there. She said retire like it was a destination she'd already booked, not a concept decades away. My mother's delight seemed to intensify, the kind of happiness parents feel when their children exceed expectations. A second home. That's incredible. You two have worked so hard. Tyler's eyes slid to me, just for a second, but long enough for me to catch the glint of superiority there. Some of us have, anyway. He said it quietly, almost under his breath, but the table was small enough that everyone heard. Vanessa stifled another laugh behind her wine glass. The server returned with appetizers, giving me a moment to breathe, to let the comment roll off like I'd learned to do over the years. Bruschetta, calamari, some kind of flatbread with figs and goat cheese. Tyler served himself first, then Vanessa, the two of them discussing flavor profiles like they were on a cooking show. What about you, Nicole? My father's voice cut through the chatter, gentle but direct. How are things going with you? I swallowed a sip of water, buying time. What could I say? That I'd worked 53 hours last week between my call center job and weekend shifts at a coffee shop. That my apartment had a leak in the bathroom ceiling I couldn't afford to fix properly, so I'd been catching drips in a bucket for 3 weeks. That some mornings I woke up so tired I could barely remember driving to work. Things are fine, I said, keeping my voice steady. Busy, but fine. Tyler snorted softly. Busy at the call center. Must be exhausting telling people to turn their routers off and on again. Vanessa pressed her lips together, trying not to laugh openly this time. My mother shot Tyler a look, the kind that used to mean something when we were children but carried no weight now. Tyler, be nice. He raised his hands in mock surrender. I'm just saying, some people are built for ambition, and some people are built for comfort. Nothing wrong with being comfortable. The way he said comfortable made it sound like a character flaw, like I'd chosen mediocrity the way someone might choose a flavor of ice cream. Dinner continued in that rhythm. Tyler and Vanessa dominated the conversation, talking about their home renovation, their upcoming vacation to scout furniture for the Scottsdale house, their friends who were equally successful and impressive. My parents asked polite questions, made encouraging sounds, basked in the reflected glory of their accomplished son. I ate my salmon, answered when spoken to, and counted the minutes until I could reasonably excuse myself. Dessert arrived, some elaborate chocolate construction that the server described in detail. Tyler pulled out his phone and made Vanessa pose with her dessert, snapping photos for Instagram. Got to document the good life, he said, scrolling through filters. Then, almost as an afterthought, come on, Nick, get in here. Family photo. I leaned in, forcing a smile, while Tyler held the phone at an angle that somehow made his watch visible in the frame. He snapped 3 shots, checked them, seemed satisfied. I watched him type a caption, his thumbs moving fast. He hit post, then set the phone face down on the table. Vanessa picked it up almost immediately, reading the caption and laughing. Oh honey, that's perfect. She tilted the screen toward my mother, who read it and smiled uncomfortably. I didn't ask to see it. I didn't need to. Whatever he'd written, it would be some variation on the same theme he'd been playing my entire adult life. The successful brother and his charity case sister. When the check came, Tyler grabbed it with theatrical flourish, pulling out a black credit card. This one's on me, everyone. Executive director privileges. He winked at my father, signed with a generous tip, and stood up, stretching like he'd just completed some important work. Outside, the rain had softened to a drizzle. We stood under the restaurant awning making those awkward goodbye sounds families make when dinner hasn't gone well but no one wants to acknowledge it. Tyler and Vanessa were parked in the valet area, of course. My parents had parked in the lot, same as me. Drive safe, sweetheart, my mother said, hugging me tight, holding on just a second longer than necessary. She knew. She always knew. But knowing and saying something were different things, and she'd never been the type to confront Tyler directly. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. My father patted my shoulder, his version of affection. Good to see you, Nicole. Tyler and Vanessa were already in their Mercedes, engine purring, heated seats probably warming up. Tyler rolled down his window as I walked past. Hey, Nick, he called. I stopped, turned. If you ever need help with your resume, if you want to try for something better, I know some people in HR, entry-level stuff, but better than customer service, right? He said it like he was doing me a favor, like I should be grateful for his condescending offer. Vanessa nodded along, encouraging, as if this was generous rather than insulting. Thanks, I said, voice flat. I'll keep that in mind. They drove off, taillights disappearing into the Portland drizzle, leaving me standing there under the awning with my parents. My mother touched my arm. Don't let him get to you, honey. You know how he is. I knew. I'd known for 15 years, ever since he'd graduated business school and decided that success gave him permission to treat everyone else like they were failing at life. I hugged my parents goodbye, walked to my Civic, and sat in the driver's seat for a long moment before starting the engine. My phone buzzed. Instagram notification. Tyler had tagged me in the photo. I opened the app, already knowing what I'd find. There we were, the three of us around the dessert table. The caption read, "Nothing like family time. So grateful for this life. Some of us dream, some of us do. Blessed to be a doer. Even brought the family charity case along tonight. Love you, little sis." 43 likes already. Comments rolling in from his colleagues and friends. Family is everything. You're so generous. Success looks good on you. I stared at the screen, at my face in that photo, smiling like everything was fine. Something inside me shifted, the same way tectonic plates shift deep underground before an earthquake. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just a fundamental repositioning of weight and pressure. I opened my text messages and scrolled to a contact I hadn't messaged in 3 weeks. Mr. Douglas Chen. My first landlord, my mentor, the man who'd taken a chance on a 25-year-old call center worker with a crazy idea about real estate investing. The man who'd taught me everything I knew about property management, tenant relations, and building wealth quietly. The message I typed was simple. Mr. Chen, I think it's time we talked about going public with the portfolio. Would you have time to meet this week? His response came back almost immediately. Thought you'd never ask. Tomorrow afternoon? My office? I confirmed, then set my phone down and started driving home through the wet streets of Portland. Tomorrow would begin something different. Tonight, I let myself feel the anger, the humiliation, the exhaustion of being treated like I'd failed at life when the truth was so completely different. My apartment waited in the Hillside district, 3rd floor walk-up, peeling paint on the exterior, neighbors who played music too loud on weekends. The building wasn't much, but I'd paid cash for it 6 years ago, one of my first purchases. I lived in the smallest unit and rented out the other 5. The rent paid the property taxes and maintenance with enough left over to funnel into my next investment. Inside, I dropped my purse on the kitchen counter, kicked off my shoes, and walked to the small desk in the corner of my living room. My laptop sat closed, waiting. I opened it and pulled up the spreadsheet I'd been maintaining for 8 years. 47 properties across 5 Arizona cities. A portfolio worth just over $38 million. Monthly rental income that exceeded what Tyler made in a year, even with his fancy new promotion. I'd started with one duplex in Phoenix, bought with money I'd saved from working double shifts and living on practically nothing. Mr. Chen had co-signed the loan and taught me how to find deals, how to negotiate, how to manage tenants without getting walked on. That first property cash flowed $300 a month after expenses. I'd saved every penny, lived on instant noodles and thrift store clothes, and bought the next property 18 months later. Then another. Then another. Each purchase strategic, each property vetted and analyzed until I knew the numbers in my sleep. I'd learned to spot value where others saw problems. Outdated properties that needed cosmetic work but had strong bones. Multifamily units in neighborhoods on the verge of gentrification. Vacation rentals in areas where tourism was growing. I'd made mistakes, lost money on 2 properties that taught me expensive lessons, but mostly I'd been careful, methodical, patient. While Tyler climbed the corporate ladder and posted about his achievements, I'd been building something real, something that generated income whether I showed up to work or not. While Vanessa shopped for designer handbags, I'd been shopping for properties with cap rates above 8%. While they'd bought new cars and taken expensive vacations, I'd been reinvesting every dollar back into the portfolio. And I'd kept it quiet. Not because I was ashamed, but because I'd learned early that people treat you differently when they know you have money. Mr. Chen had taught me that lesson. Wealth whispers, he'd said. Insecurity shouts. Let them think whatever they want while you build your empire in silence. So I'd let Tyler think I was struggling. Let Vanessa pity me. Let my parents worry. Let everyone assume that working at a call center meant I was barely surviving, when the truth was I'd kept that job because it required nothing from me emotionally, leaving all my mental energy for the real work of analyzing deals and managing properties. But tonight something had cracked. Maybe it was the Instagram caption. Maybe it was years of accumulated disrespect finally reaching critical mass. Maybe I was just tired of hiding while Tyler paraded his success like a weapon meant to diminish everyone around him. I looked at the spreadsheet, at the addresses listed in careful rows, at the numbers that represented not just money but strategy, discipline, sacrifice, and vision. 47 properties. Hundreds of tenants. Millions of dollars in equity. Built one deliberate decision at a time while everyone thought I was failing. My phone buzzed again. Another Instagram notification. Someone else commenting on Tyler's post, another person I barely knew offering their admiration for his generosity in tolerating his unsuccessful sister. I closed the app without reading the comment, turned off my phone, and sat in the quiet of my modest apartment. Tomorrow I'd meet with Mr. Chen and start the process of stepping out of the shadows. Tomorrow I'd begin showing Tyler and Vanessa and everyone else who dismissed me exactly what I'd built while they weren't paying attention. Tomorrow the whisper would become a statement that couldn't be ignored. But tonight, I let myself sit with the decision, feeling its weight and rightness. Outside, the rain picked up again, drumming against the windows. Inside, I started making a list of everything I'd need to do, everyone I'd need to contact, all the pieces that would have to fall into place for this revelation to land with the impact it deserved. At the top of the list, I wrote 3 words. Scottsdale Family Reunion. Tyler had mentioned it at dinner, casually, the way he mentioned everything that revolved around him. 2 weeks away. The whole extended family gathering at some resort for a long weekend. My mother had sent the invitation months ago, and I'd confirmed my attendance out of obligation, already dreading the experience. But now I saw it differently. Now I saw an opportunity, a stage, a moment that could shift the entire family narrative in one decisive move. Tyler and Vanessa would be there, fresh from their property shopping trip, probably full of stories about the luxury homes they'd toured. They'd expect me to show up in another thrift store outfit, probably having driven my old Honda across state lines, staying in the cheapest hotel I could find. They had no idea that 3 of the properties they'd be touring belonged to me. That the luxury complex they'd probably photographed for Instagram was one I'd purchased 2 years ago. That the success they'd be showing off was actually happening on land I owned. I smiled to myself in the darkness of my apartment, the kind of smile that comes from knowing something others don't, from holding cards close while everyone else shows their hand. 2 weeks. That's all the time I needed to prepare, to coordinate, to set everything in motion. Let them have their vacation. Let them tour their properties and take their photos and feel superior. I'd be patient just a little longer. Because the moment when they realized the truth, when they understood exactly how wrong they'd been, that moment needed to be perfect. And I was very, very good at being patient. The morning arrived with pale sunlight filtering through my apartment windows, the kind of weak October light that feels more like a suggestion than actual warmth. I'd slept maybe 4 hours, my mind spinning through scenarios and possibilities until exhaustion finally dragged me under around 3 in the morning. The alarm went off at 6:30, and I was already awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the conversation I'd be having with Mr. Chen in less than 8 hours. I made coffee in the small French press I'd owned since college, the same one I'd used when I bought my first property and couldn't afford anything nicer. Some habits stick even when circumstances change. The coffee was strong and bitter, exactly how I needed it. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, pulling up files I'd organized over the years but rarely looked at all together. Property deeds, tax assessments, insurance policies, mortgage statements on the handful of properties I'd financed, bank statements showing the progression from barely surviving to quietly thriving. The numbers told a story I'd never shared with anyone except Mr. Chen and my accountant, Kevin Ramos. 8 years ago I'd had $1,200 in savings and a dream that everyone said was unrealistic. Now the portfolio generated $63,000 a month in gross rental income. After expenses, debt service, property management fees, maintenance reserves, and taxes, I cleared about $31,000 monthly. More money than Tyler made in a year, deposited automatically into accounts he didn't know existed. I'd been strategic about keeping things separate. My call center paychecks went into one account, the one linked to my everyday debit card, the one with a balance that looked exactly like someone struggling to make ends meet should have. The real estate income flowed into business accounts under my LLC, Hayes Property Holdings. Different bank entirely. Different tax returns. A completely separate financial identity that existed parallel to my visible life. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Sweetie, thank you for coming to dinner last night. I know Tyler can be difficult sometimes. Love you." I stared at the message, at her gentle attempt to smooth over what had happened, to minimize the casual cruelty as just Tyler being Tyler. She meant well. She always meant well. But her constant peacemaking had enabled his behavior for decades. I typed back something neutral. "Love you too, Mom. Talk soon." Then I set the phone down and returned to my files. At 9 I showered and dressed for my shift at Cascade Customer Solutions. The uniform was simple, business casual, which in practice meant khakis and a polo shirt with the company logo. I'd worked there long enough that my coworkers had stopped asking about my goals or plans. I was just Nicole, the reliable one who took extra shifts, who never complained, who showed up on time and did her job without drama. They had no idea that I spent my lunch breaks reviewing property inspections or that I took calls from contractors while on bathroom breaks. The shift passed in the usual blur of customer complaints and system issues. Mrs. Patterson called about her cable box again. I walked her through the same troubleshooting steps I'd walked her through last month. Mr. Valdez wanted to dispute a charge. I transferred him to billing. A young guy, maybe 22, screamed about his internet speed until I calmly explained what bandwidth meant and suggested he upgrade his plan. 8 hours of this, 5 days a week, for a paycheck that barely covered what normal people considered expenses. At 5 I clocked out, waved goodbye to my supervisor, and drove across town to Mr. Chen's office in a converted warehouse building near the river. He'd been in real estate for 40 years, starting with nothing as an immigrant from Taiwan in the 1970s. He'd built his wealth slowly, methodically, the same way he'd taught me. Now in his early 70s, he'd mostly retired from active management but still kept an office where he consulted and mentored a handful of investors he believed in. I was one of 3 people who had that privilege. He'd told me once that he could spot hunger in someone's eyes, the kind of hunger that came from wanting something better badly enough to sacrifice everything comfortable to get there. He'd seen it in me the day I'd answered his rental ad for a studio apartment, then spent 30 minutes asking him questions about property values and cash flow instead of just signing the lease. His office took up the 3rd floor, accessible by an old freight elevator that groaned and clanked. The space was sparse, functional, dominated by a massive desk covered in newspapers and real estate journals. Mr. Chen sat behind it, reading glasses perched on his nose, studying something on his computer screen. He looked up when I entered, his weathered face breaking into a smile. "Nicole," he said, standing with effort. His knees weren't what they used to be, but his mind was sharp as ever. "Come, sit." I made tea. A ceramic pot sat on a small table by the window, steam rising from its spout. 2 cups waited beside it. This was his ritual, the way he conducted all important business. Slow down, drink tea, think carefully before speaking. I'd learned more from these tea sessions than from any business book or seminar. He poured, the amber liquid flowing in a steady stream. I took my cup, inhaling the earthy aroma. Oolong, his favorite. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, and then he spoke. "So," he said, "you're ready to stop hiding." It wasn't a question. He'd known this day would come, probably before I did. "I think so," I said. "Something happened last night." "Family dinner." "My brother, he just keeps pushing, and I realized I'm tired of letting him think he's better than me when the truth is so different." Mr. Chen nodded slowly. "Pride is a dangerous motivator. I taught you to build wealth quietly. But I also taught you that wealth means nothing if you're imprisoned by the secret of it." "What changed?" I told him about dinner, about Tyler's promotion and his second home, about the Instagram post and the years of accumulated disrespect. About how I'd kept quiet because I thought staying invisible was the same as staying smart, but maybe I'd just been afraid. Afraid of their judgment, their questions, their inability to understand how someone like me could have built something they couldn't even imagine. "They're going to Scottsdale," I said. "For a family reunion in 2 weeks. They'll be shopping for furniture for their new house, driving around looking at properties, feeling successful. And they have no idea they'll be driving past buildings I own." Mr. Chen's eyes crinkled with something that might have been amusement. "And you want to show them?" "I want them to understand," I corrected. "There's a difference." He sipped his tea, considering. "Revenge is expensive, emotionally. Make sure you can afford the price." "This isn't revenge," I said, though part of me wondered if that was entirely true. "It's honesty. They think I'm failing. They pity me. They mock me at family dinners and post about it online. They've built their identity partly on being better than me. I'm just going to correct the record." "And after you correct it?" Mr. Chen asked. "What then?" "They'll be angry. Embarrassed. Your family dynamics will shift in ways you can't predict. Are you prepared for that?" I'd thought about this during my sleepless night. The fallout wouldn't be simple. Tyler would feel humiliated, exposed. Vanessa would be furious, threatened by having her worldview upended. My parents would be confused, hurt that I'd kept such a massive secret from them. Extended family would gossip. Some would congratulate me. Others would accuse me of showing off or lying or somehow cheating to get ahead. "I'm prepared," I said. "Or at least, I'm willing to accept the consequences. I can't keep living like this, letting them define me by what they think I lack." Mr. Chen set down his cup and reached for a folder on his desk. Inside were documents I recognized, partnership agreements we drafted years ago when he'd helped me structure my LLC. "If you're going to do this," he said, "do it properly. Not just showing up and announcing you have properties. That's amateur. You need documentation, proof, a presentation that leaves no room for doubt or dismissal. You need to control the narrative completely. He pulled out a legal pad and started writing, his handwriting still precise despite his age. First, we get Kevin to prepare a portfolio summary. Every property, purchase price, current value, monthly income, equity position. Professional, detailed, irrefutable. Second, we have Patricia draw up your corporate documents, articles of organization, operating agreement, everything that proves Hayes Property Holdings is legitimate and substantial. Third, we create a visual presentation, photos of each property, addresses, the full scope of what you've built. I watched him write, feeling something settle in my chest. This was real now. Not just an angry impulse but a strategic plan. And then? I asked. Then you choose your moment carefully, he said. Not in anger. Not as an ambush. You present the facts calmly, professionally, as if you're simply sharing information they should have known all along. You don't gloat. You don't accuse. You just show them reality and let them reconcile that with whatever story they've been telling themselves. He looked up from his notes. Your brother sounds like a man who's built his identity on being the successful one. When you take that away, he won't just be surprised. He'll be devastated. That's power, Nicole. Real power. And with power comes responsibility to use it wisely. We spent the next 2 hours going through logistics. Kevin Ramos could have the portfolio summary ready in 3 days. Patricia Whitmore would need a week for the legal documents. I'd need to collect photos of all 47 properties, which meant reaching out to my property managers in Arizona and asking them to do a systematic photo survey. Mr. Chin suggested creating a bound presentation book, something physical I could hand to people, something they could flip through and touch and verify. People believe what they can hold, he said. Digital presentations are easy to dismiss as manipulated or fake. But a professional bound book with your name on it, with photos and documents and numbers, that becomes undeniable. By the time I left his office, the sun was setting over Portland, painting the river in shades of orange and pink. I sat in my car for a moment, looking at the list of tasks I'd written during our meeting. This wasn't going to be simple or quick. It would require coordination, money for the documentation and presentation materials, time I'd have to carve out from my regular schedule. But as I started the engine and pulled into evening traffic, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not anger anymore. Not resentment. Just clarity. The kind of crystalline certainty that comes when you finally stop second-guessing and commit fully to a path. My phone rang through the car's Bluetooth. My mother. I almost didn't answer, but guilt and habit won. Hi, Mom. Sweetheart, I wanted to check on you. You seemed quiet at dinner last night, and after Tyler left, I just wanted to make sure you're okay. I navigated through an intersection, buying time to formulate an answer. I'm fine, Mom. Just tired from work. I know he can be insensitive sometimes, she said carefully. He doesn't mean it the way it sounds. He's just proud of what he's accomplished, and sometimes that comes across wrong. This was the script we'd played out 100 times. Tyler hurts my feelings. Mom explains it away. I accept the explanation and move on. But tonight the script felt different, like lines from a play I was no longer willing to perform. Mom, I said, surprising myself with the directness, has it ever occurred to you that maybe Tyler's not just insensitive? That maybe he's actually mean? Silence on the other end. I could picture her face, the way it would pinch with worry and confusion. Nicole, that's a harsh thing to say about your brother. Is it? He called me the family charity case on Instagram. In front of all his friends and colleagues. He's been diminishing me for years, and you've been excusing it because it's uncomfortable to acknowledge. He was joking, honey. That's just his sense of humor. It's not funny, though. Not to me. And I don't think it's funny to everyone who reads it either. I think some of them pity me, and some of them judge me, and all of them think I'm failing at life because that's the story Tyler tells. More silence. Then, softly, are you? Failing? The question landed like a stone. Not mean-spirited, just genuinely worried. My mother actually believed I might be struggling, barely making it, one emergency away from disaster. Because that's what I'd let everyone believe. That's the role I'd accepted in the family narrative. No, Mom, I said. I'm not failing. I'm actually doing better than you think. Better than any of you think. What does that mean? I turned onto my street, seeing my apartment building ahead. It means maybe things aren't what they seem. And maybe at the reunion in Scottsdale, some things are going to become clearer. You're being cryptic, Nicole. Are you in some kind of trouble? Do you need money? Your father and I can help if you're struggling. The offer was genuine, loving, and completely unnecessary. I don't need money, Mom. I promise. I'm okay. More than okay. You'll see. We said goodbye, and I parked in my usual spot behind the building. Inside my apartment, I opened my laptop again and started drafting an email to my property managers in Arizona. I needed photos, lots of them, exterior and interior shots of all 47 properties. Professional quality if possible, but clear and well lit at minimum. I explained I was preparing a portfolio presentation and needed everything within a week. The responses came quickly. My managers were used to my requests, used to my attention to detail and organization. Within an hour, 3 of them had confirmed they could deliver. The 4th would need 2 extra days but could manage. I approved the timeline and closed my laptop. The next week passed in a blur of normal life punctuated by preparation. I worked my shifts at the call center, answered customer complaints, ate lunch at my desk while reviewing property photos as they arrived in my email. Kevin sent the portfolio summary on day 4, a 30-page document that laid out every acquisition, every refinancing, every strategic decision over 8 years. The numbers were staggering when seen all together. Total property value of $38.2 million. Total debt of $11.6 million. Net equity of $26.6 million. Patricia's legal documents arrived on day 7, certified copies of my LLC formation, my operating agreement naming me as sole managing member, tax returns showing the business income. Everything official, stamped, notarized, impossible to dispute. I took everything to a print shop that specialized in professional presentations. The woman behind the counter, probably in her 50s with reading glasses on a chain, looked through my materials with growing interest. This is quite a portfolio, she said. Real estate investor? Something like that, I replied. She quoted me a price for a leather-bound presentation book with embossed lettering. It wasn't cheap, but it was exactly what I needed. I approved it and paid extra for rush service. 2 days later I picked up the finished product, and it was perfect. Professional, substantial, impressive without being showy. My name embossed on the cover. Hayes Property Holdings underneath. Inside, every page a testament to what I'd built in silence. I held the book in my hands, feeling its weight. This was the evidence. This was the truth in physical form. And in 3 days, I'd be in Scottsdale, ready to share it with people who had no idea what they were about to see. My phone buzzed with a text from Tyler. Heading to Arizona tomorrow. Can't wait to show everyone the new place. You're still coming to the reunion, right? Would hate for you to miss the family fun. The message dripped with false enthusiasm and subtle mockery. He couldn't imagine I'd want to miss watching him parade his success. I texted back simply, I'll be there. Looking forward to it. That night I packed carefully. Not the thrift store clothes Tyler expected. I'd gone shopping 3 days earlier, buying outfits that were professional, put together, appropriate for someone who owned $26 million in real estate. Nothing flashy, nothing designer, just quality pieces that fit well and communicated competence. I packed the presentation book wrapped in a protective cover, placed it in my carry-on bag where it would stay with me the entire trip. The morning flight left at 6. I drove to the airport in darkness, returned my rental car, and checked in for my flight. Tyler and Vanessa were probably flying first class on a later flight. They'd stay at the resort where the reunion was being held, some expensive place with a spa and golf course. I'd booked a room at a modest hotel 15 minutes away, the kind of choice the old Nicole would make. But I'd also made another reservation, one they didn't know about. A dinner reservation at the resort restaurant for the night before the official reunion event started. I'd invited my parents, told them I wanted to talk to them privately. They'd agreed, curious but not suspicious. The flight to Phoenix was smooth and uneventful. I rented a car at the airport, another modest choice, and drove north toward Scottsdale with the presentation book beside me on the passenger seat. The desert landscape stretched out in all directions, mountains in the distance, saguaro cacti standing like sentinels. Somewhere out here, scattered across cities and neighborhoods, were 47 properties that belonged to me. I drove past 3 of them on the way to my hotel. A 4-unit apartment building in Tempe that I'd bought for $270,000 and was now worth nearly $500,000. A single-family rental in Mesa that had appreciated 40% in 3 years. A small commercial plaza in Chandler that housed a coffee shop, a nail salon, and a tutoring center, all paying above market rent. Each property was a memory, a story, a hard-won victory. And tomorrow, everyone would know. The Arizona heat hit me the moment I stepped out of my hotel room the next morning, dry and immediate, so different from Portland's damp chill. I'd slept surprisingly well despite the nerves humming beneath my skin. Today was reconnaissance. Tomorrow would be the dinner with my parents. The day after, the full family reunion where Tyler would hold court and I would change everything. I dressed simply, jeans and a cotton shirt, sunglasses and sunscreen. The presentation book stayed locked in the hotel safe. Today was about verification, about seeing with my own eyes the properties I'd only viewed through inspection reports and property manager updates. I wanted to drive past them, photograph them myself, feel the reality of what I'd built before I revealed it to people who'd spent years believing I'd built nothing. My first stop was a luxury apartment complex in North Scottsdale, 12 units spread across 3 buildings arranged around a central courtyard with a pool. I'd purchased it 18 months ago for $2.4 million, financed with 30% down and a commercial mortgage that the rental income covered easily. The property manager, a woman named Sandra Torres, had sent me updated photos last week showing the landscaping refreshed and 2 units newly renovated. I parked across the street and just looked at it for a moment. Desert modern architecture, clean lines, tan stucco with dark wood accents. The kind of place that attracted young professionals and small families willing to pay premium rent for the location and amenities. Each unit rented for between $2,000 and $2,800 monthly. The property generated about $26,000 gross each month, and after expenses still cleared nearly $11,000. This was Building 6, the one Tyler would drive past. The one he'd mock me about in that video message. I took photos from multiple angles, wide shots showing the entire complex, closer shots of the entrance and the address numbers clearly visible. Documentation. Evidence. Proof. A woman emerged from one of the ground floor units, keys in hand, a toddler on her hip. She saw me photographing and waved, friendly but slightly curious. I waved back and got in my car. No need to explain. In 2 days, everyone would understand. The next property was 15 minutes south, a 6-unit building near Old Town Scottsdale. Older construction, 1980s era, but well-maintained and located in a neighborhood that had gentrified steadily over the past decade. I'd bought this one 5 years ago for $380,000 when it needed significant updating. I'd put another $70,000 into renovations, modern kitchens and bathrooms, new flooring, fresh paint, updated appliances. Now it was worth around $750,000 and produced $6,800 monthly after all expenses. I walked the perimeter, noting details Sandra had mentioned in her reports. New security lighting installed last month. The landscaping sparse but appropriate for desert climate. Window AC units that would need replacing with central air eventually, a capital expense I'd budgeted for next fiscal year. Everything maintained, everything functional. Everything generating income month after month while I answered phone calls in Portland about cable television packages. Property number 3 was a commercial strip in Tempe, near Arizona State University. 5 storefronts, 3 currently occupied by a bubble tea shop, a phone repair store, and a study space that charged students hourly rates. I'd purchased it 3 years ago for $1.1 million, seeing the potential in the location even though 2 units sat vacant. Now all 5 were leased, generating combined monthly rent of $9,200. The property had appreciated to roughly $1.7 million according to recent comparables. I sat in my car in the parking lot, watching college students flow in and out of the bubble tea shop. This property had been a risk, my first commercial purchase, the moment I'd graduated from purely residential investing. Mr. Chen had counseled caution but supported the decision after reviewing my analysis. The first year had been rough, dealing with commercial tenants and their specific needs, learning new regulations and lease structures. But I'd persisted, and now it was one of my most stable performers. By early afternoon I'd driven past 17 properties, a survey of my Arizona holdings concentrated in the Phoenix metro area. Not all 47, those were scattered from Tucson to Flagstaff, but enough to feel the scope of what I'd created. Millions of dollars in brick and stucco and tile roofs. Hundreds of people living and working in spaces I provided. A business that operated efficiently whether I was present or not, generating wealth while I lived quietly 1,500 miles away. I stopped for lunch at a small Mexican restaurant, sitting outside under an umbrella, eating chicken tacos and reviewing my photos. Each image told a story Tyler didn't know. Each address represented a decision, a sacrifice, a bet on my own judgment that had paid off. I thought about all the dinners I'd skipped, the clothes I hadn't bought, the vacations I'd never taken. Every dollar funneled back into this, into building something that would last, something that would generate income for decades, something that couldn't be taken away by corporate downsizing or economic shifts. Tyler's success was real but fragile, dependent on staying employed, staying relevant, staying in his boss's good graces. My success was different. These properties would exist and produce income whether I worked another day in my life or not. That was the power of real assets, the security of tangible value. My phone rang. Vanessa. I stared at the screen for a moment, debating whether to answer. Curiosity won. Hello? Nicole. Hi. Her voice had that forced brightness she used when she wanted something or was about to deliver bad news disguised as good. I heard you're already in town. That's so funny. Tyler and I just got in this morning. We're at the resort, and it's absolutely gorgeous. You're going to love it. I doubted that was why she called. It sounds nice, I said neutrally. Listen, I wanted to give you a heads up. We're having a little pre-reunion cocktail thing tonight, just close family, super casual. Your parents are coming. I know you're probably tired from traveling, but it would mean a lot if you could stop by. Even just for an hour? An ambush. A chance for Tyler to parade his new house plans, to show off in front of our parents in a relaxed setting where his dominance would feel natural and my presence would feel like charity. What time? I asked. 6-ish? We're in the Sunset Pavilion at the resort. Really casual, I promise. Just appetizers and drinks. I thought about my dinner reservation with my parents tomorrow night. I could skip this event, avoid the preliminary humiliation, save my revelation for a more controlled moment. But something in me resisted the hiding. I'd spent 8 years being invisible. What was one more evening of letting them think they knew who I was? I'll try to make it, I said, non-committal. Perfect. Oh, and Nicole? Don't worry about dressing up. We know you probably didn't pack anything fancy. Honestly, your regular clothes are totally fine. The condescension was so casual she probably didn't even hear it in her own voice. Your regular clothes. Like I was a child being reassured I didn't need to try too hard. Thanks, Vanessa. I'll see you tonight. I hung up and finished my tacos, mind already sorting through my suitcase inventory. I'd packed a linen dress, pale blue, simple but well cut. Professional without being corporate. Appropriate for a cocktail thing without looking like I was trying too hard. I'd wear that with sandals and minimal jewelry. Let them see what they expected to see one last time. The afternoon stretched ahead. I had 4 hours before I needed to head to the resort. I spent it driving to 3 more properties, including the small vacation rental in Paradise Valley that I'd purchased last year, a 2-bedroom casita that rented by the week to tourists and generated $4,800 monthly despite being occupied less than 70% of the time. The nightly rate during peak season was $350, and even in slow months it covered its expenses and contributed to the portfolio's overall performance. At 5 I returned to my hotel and showered, washing off the desert dust and sweat. The air conditioning in my room hummed steadily, keeping the space cool against the late afternoon heat still radiating outside. I dressed carefully, applied light makeup, pulled my hair into a loose bun that looked effortless but actually required strategic pinning. The mirror showed someone who could be either version of Nicole. The struggling call center worker or the successful real estate investor. The same features, the same person, just a matter of what people chose to see. I drove to the resort as the sun started its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. The resort was everything I'd expected. Sprawling, manicured, expensive in that subtle way where nothing has price tags because if you need to ask you probably shouldn't be there. Valet parking, which I declined, parking instead in the guest lot where my rental car would be anonymous among dozens of others. The Sunset Pavilion was an open-air space near the pool area, covered by a pergola wrapped in string lights that would look magical once darkness fell. Maybe 30 people mingled, holding glasses of wine and small plates of appetizers. I recognized extended family, aunts and uncles and cousins I saw once or twice a year at events like this. And there, at the center like they'd arranged the furniture around themselves, stood Tyler and Vanessa. Tyler had changed into resort casual, linen pants and a button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up. His watch caught the light, expensive and deliberate. Vanessa wore a white sundress that probably cost more than my monthly car payment used to, her hair in perfect beach waves, her tan even and golden. They looked like an advertisement for the life they'd built, successful and beautiful and completely in control. My mother saw me first, her face lighting up with relief. She broke away from a conversation with my Aunt Patricia and hurried over. "Sweetheart, you made it. I'm so glad. Come get some wine, there's a wonderful selection." She guided me toward the bar, chattering about the resort and how nice the rooms were and wasn't it wonderful that everyone could gather like this. I let her talk, nodding at appropriate moments, accepting a glass of white wine from the bartender. Then Tyler spotted us. "Nicole." He crossed the space with Vanessa trailing behind, both of them wearing matching expressions of pleased surprise, as if my attendance was unexpected despite Vanessa's explicit invitation. "Glad you could make it, sis. Traffic wasn't too bad from your hotel?" He said hotel with just enough emphasis to remind everyone that I wasn't staying at the resort with the rest of the family. "It was fine," I said. "Nice place you chose for this." "We wanted everyone to see the area," Vanessa said, gesturing broadly at the resort and the desert beyond. "Get a feel for why we fell in love with Scottsdale. It's just such a different energy than Portland, you know? More vibrant, more alive." My father joined us, completing the immediate family circle. He clapped Tyler on the shoulder. "Your mother and I drove past your new house today. Very impressive, son. You've done well for yourself." Tyler accepted the praise with practiced modesty. "We got lucky with the timing. The market here is competitive, but our realtor found us something perfect. 3,000 square feet, pool, outdoor kitchen, views of Camelback Mountain. It's everything we wanted." "Must have cost a fortune," I said quietly, genuinely curious. $2.2 million, Vanessa said, somehow making it sound both impressive and casual. "But it's worth every penny. The resale value in that neighborhood is incredible. We'll probably make money just from appreciation over the next few years." I did the math quickly in my head. With 20% down, they'd have a mortgage around $6,000 monthly, plus property taxes, insurance, HOA fees. Probably $8,000 total monthly expense for a vacation home they'd use occasionally. It was extravagant but not unreasonable for someone at Tyler's income level. What they didn't know was that the property directly across the street from their new house, a modest 4-unit rental building, belonged to me. I'd purchased it 14 months ago for $680,000. It generated $4,200 monthly in rent and had appreciated about 12%. I'd driven past it this afternoon, confirming the address against the neighborhood Vanessa had mentioned at dinner last week. "Congratulations," I said, meaning it. "It sounds like exactly what you wanted." Tyler studied me for a moment, as if trying to detect sarcasm or resentment. Finding none, he seemed slightly disappointed. "You should come see it once we close. Maybe you'll get inspired to make some moves yourself. Start thinking bigger, you know?" "Maybe," I said, sipping my wine. The evening proceeded in predictable rhythms. Relatives circulated, sharing updates and asking questions. Tyler and Vanessa held court, describing their house in detail to anyone who would listen, showing photos on their phones, accepting congratulations. My parents beamed, proud of their successful son and his lovely wife. I stayed on the periphery, talking when spoken to, smiling at appropriate moments, playing the role I'd perfected over 8 years. My cousin Jennifer asked about my job. I told her it was fine, steady, nothing exciting. She nodded sympathetically and changed the subject. My uncle Robert asked if I was dating anyone. I said no and deflected with a question about his own kids. Nobody asked about my finances. Nobody inquired about my investments or my plans or my dreams. Because they'd already decided what my story was, and that story didn't include success or wealth or strategic brilliance. It included struggle and mediocrity and making do. And I'd let them believe it because it was easier than explaining the truth. Around 7:30, Tyler called for everyone's attention, tapping his wine glass with a fork. The conversations died down, faces turning toward him expectantly. He stood with Vanessa beside him, both of them positioned perfectly with the sunset backdrop behind them, the string lights beginning to glow as dusk approached. "I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming out here," Tyler began, his voice carrying that confident public speaking tone he'd probably practiced in business school. "Family is everything to Vanessa and me, and having you all here to celebrate this new chapter means the world. We're building something special in Scottsdale, putting down roots, creating a legacy." Vanessa squeezed his hand, gazing up at him adoringly. He continued. "I know not everyone can afford to invest in real estate at this level, and that's okay. We all have different paths, different capabilities. But I hope seeing what's possible inspires some of you to think bigger about your own futures." His eyes found mine in the crowd. Just for a second. Long enough for me to understand that his words, while ostensibly directed at everyone, were specifically aimed at me. A reminder of the hierarchy, of who had succeeded and who hadn't. "So raise your glasses," he said, lifting his own. "To family, to success, and to knowing your worth." Everyone raised their glasses and drank. I raised mine too, meeting Tyler's eyes across the space, and smiled. A small, knowing smile that seemed to confuse him for just a moment before he turned back to accepting congratulations and handshakes. My mother appeared at my elbow. "He didn't mean anything by that," she whispered. "The part about different capabilities. He was just trying to be motivational." "I know, Mom," I said. And I did know. Tyler meant exactly what he said. He believed it completely. He believed he was better, smarter, more capable. He believed my life was small because I was small. And tomorrow night, I would give him a gift he hadn't asked for. The truth. I stayed another hour, fulfilling the minimum social obligation, then excused myself claiming fatigue from travel. My parents hugged me goodbye. Tyler and Vanessa waved from across the pavilion where they were deep in conversation with some cousins. I walked back to my rental car as full darkness settled over the desert, the temperature finally starting to drop from its daytime high. Sitting in the driver's seat, I pulled out my phone and reviewed my calendar. Tomorrow night, dinner with my parents at 7. I'd told them I had something important to discuss, something I wanted them to hear first before the whole family reunion the following day. They'd agreed, curious but not concerned. I had the presentation book. I had the documentation. I had the photos. Everything was ready. All that remained was the execution, the moment of revelation that would shift everything. I drove back to my hotel through quiet streets, past shopping centers and restaurants and neighborhoods where people lived their lives unaware that some of the buildings around them belonged to a woman they'd never met. A woman who worked in a call center and wore thrift store clothes and let everyone underestimate her while she built an empire in silence. Back in my room, I opened the safe and removed the presentation book, carrying it to the bed. I opened it to the first page, a summary sheet listing all 47 properties with their addresses, purchase prices, and current values. Then I flipped through slowly, page by page, seeing the progression of my strategy over 8 years. The early purchases, small and cautious. The middle years, growing confidence and calculated risks. The recent acquisitions, larger deals financed with equity from previous properties, the portfolio compounding on itself, each success funding the next opportunity. This was my story. Not the story Tyler told about me. Not the story my family believed. My actual story, written in property deeds and mortgage payments and tenant leases. A story about patience and discipline and refusing to let other people's opinions define my possibilities. Tomorrow, that story would finally be heard. And whatever happened after, whatever relationships changed or broke or healed, at least the truth would be known. At least I would stop hiding in plain sight. At least the people who dismissed me would understand that sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one with the most to say. I closed the book and returned it to the safe, then changed into sleep clothes and climbed into bed. Outside my window, the desert night stretched dark and vast. Somewhere out there, Tyler and Vanessa were probably still at the resort, celebrating their success, secure in their understanding of how the world worked and where everyone fit within it. Let them celebrate. Tomorrow, the world would shift under their feet, and everything they thought they knew about their little sister would be revealed as fiction they'd written together, a comfortable lie that let them feel superior. And I would be there, calm and prepared, to show them what reality actually looked like. The restaurant at the resort specialized in southwestern cuisine with contemporary touches, the kind of place where every plate looked like art and the wine list required a sommelier to navigate. I'd made the reservation 3 weeks ago under my own name, requesting a quiet corner table, somewhere we could talk without being overheard. The hostess had confirmed everything yesterday when I called to verify. I arrived 15 minutes early, dressed in a tailored blazer over a silk blouse, dark pants, and low heels. Professional, polished, deliberate. The presentation book was in a leather messenger bag slung over my shoulder, its weight a constant reminder of what was coming. I'd spent the morning rehearsing mentally, running through possible reactions and responses, trying to anticipate every question or doubt my parents might raise. The hostess led me to the table I'd requested, tucked in an alcove with a view of the mountains through floor-to-ceiling windows. The sun was beginning its descent, casting long shadows across the landscape. I ordered sparkling water and sat with my hands folded on the table, breathing steadily, centering myself. My parents arrived together at 7 exactly, my father in a sport coat, my mother in a flowing dress she'd probably bought specifically for this trip. They spotted me and waved, weaving through the dining room with the easy comfort of people who'd been married 40 years and still genuinely enjoyed each other's company. My mother hugged me first, then my father, both of them settling into their chairs with curious smiles. "This is lovely, sweetheart," my mother said, glancing around. "What a nice surprise. We thought maybe you wanted to meet at that little cafe by your hotel." "I wanted somewhere special," I said. "What I need to talk to you about, it felt important enough to do it properly." My father's expression shifted slightly, concern creeping in. "Is everything all right? You're not sick or in trouble?" "No, nothing like that," I assured them quickly. "I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. But there's something I need to tell you, something I should have told you years ago, and I didn't because I had reasons that made sense at the time but probably don't anymore." They exchanged a glance, that wordless communication couples develop after decades together. My mother reached across the table and touched my hand. "You can tell us anything, Nicole. You know that." The server appeared, introducing himself and describing specials. We ordered drinks and appetizers, buying me a few more minutes to gather my thoughts. When he left, my father leaned forward. "Talk to us, honey. Whatever it is. I pulled the messenger bag onto my lap and withdrew the presentation book, setting it on the table between us. The leather cover gleamed under the restaurant lighting, my name embossed clearly. Hayes Property Holdings underneath. My mother looked at it, then at me, confusion evident. For the past 8 years, I began, my voice steady despite my racing heart, I've been building a real estate portfolio. 47 properties across Arizona. Residential, commercial, vacation rentals. I started with one duplex in Phoenix when I was 25, and I've been acquiring and managing properties ever since. Silence. My father's face went blank, processing. My mother's mouth opened slightly, then closed. I pushed the book toward them. This documents everything. Every property, every purchase, every financial detail. I wanted you to see it first, before tomorrow at the reunion, before Tyler and Vanessa and everyone else finds out. My father reached for the book slowly, like it might disappear if he moved too quickly. He opened it to the first page, the summary sheet with all 47 addresses listed. His eyes scanned the columns, the numbers, the totals at the bottom. My mother leaned in to read over his shoulder, her expression shifting from confusion to shock. $38 million, my father read aloud, his voice barely above a whisper. Total property value of $38 million. With debt of $11.6 million, I added. Net equity of about $26 million. The portfolio generates roughly $63,000 monthly in gross rent. After all expenses, I clear about $31,000. My mother looked up at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Not just surprise, but a kind of bewilderment, as if I'd revealed I could speak a language they'd never heard. How? She asked. How is this possible? You work at a call center. You live in that small apartment. You wear clothes from thrift stores. I kept my overhead low, I said. Every dollar I didn't spend on myself went into saving for the next property. The call center job pays my basic bills and keeps up appearances. The real estate income gets reinvested. I live below my means deliberately so I can build wealth instead of just displaying it. My father flipped through the pages, stopping at random properties, reading the details. A 12-unit complex in Scottsdale. A commercial strip in Tempe. Vacation rentals in Paradise Valley. His financial background, years of working as an accountant before retirement, allowed him to understand what he was seeing faster than most people would. These numbers are real, he said, and it wasn't quite a question but not quite a statement either. Completely real, I confirmed. I can show you tax returns, bank statements, mortgage documents, anything you want to verify. My attorney Patricia Whitmore has all the corporate paperwork. My accountant Kevin Ramos manages the books. It's legitimate, Dad. All of it. My mother's eyes were filling with tears, though I couldn't tell if they were from shock or pride or something else entirely. Why didn't you tell us? All these years, we thought you were struggling. We've worried about you, offered you money, and all this time you were building this? The hurt in her voice landed heavily. This was the consequence Mr. Chen had warned me about, the price of revelation. I didn't tell you because I knew you wouldn't be able to keep it from Tyler, I said gently. And I wasn't ready for him to know. I needed to build this without his judgment, without his interference, without having to hear his opinions about my strategy or my choices. But we're your parents, my father said, and there was pain there too, the sting of being excluded from something so significant. You couldn't trust us? It wasn't about trust, I said, choosing my words carefully. It was about protection. Tyler has spent 15 years making me feel small. You've both seen it, even if you've tried to minimize it. Every family dinner, every holiday, every casual conversation becomes an opportunity for him to remind everyone that he's successful and I'm not. If I'd told you years ago, you would have either confronted him, which would have made things worse, or you would have accidentally let something slip, and then I'd have had to deal with his reaction before I was ready. My mother wiped her eyes with her napkin. So you just let us believe you were barely making it? Let us worry and feel sorry for you? Yes, I said simply. Because your worry was easier to manage than Tyler's contempt would have been if he'd known the truth. And because I wasn't building this to prove anything to anyone. I was building it for myself, for my future, for the life I wanted to create. The fact that it contradicts the story Tyler tells about me is just a side effect. My father closed the book and met my eyes. Why tell us now? Why tomorrow at the reunion? I took a breath, considering how honest to be. Because I'm tired, I admitted. Tired of hiding, tired of being dismissed, tired of watching Tyler perform his success like it's a weapon meant to diminish everyone around him. And because they're here, in Arizona, probably driving past properties I own, planning their future in a place where I've already established myself. It feels like the right time to correct the record. This is going to humiliate Tyler, my mother said quietly. You understand that? When everyone finds out, when he realizes his little sister has been more successful than him this whole time, it's going to destroy the image he's built of himself. I know, I said. And I've struggled with that. I don't want to hurt him just for the sake of hurting him. But I also can't keep diminishing myself to protect his ego. At some point, the truth has to matter more than keeping the peace. Our appetizers arrived, beautiful arrangements of grilled shrimp and roasted vegetables that none of us immediately touched. The server sensed the heaviness at the table and quickly retreated. My father picked up his fork, then set it down again. Tell me about the first property, he said. How did you even know where to start? So I told them. About the duplex in Phoenix, about Mr. Chen becoming my mentor, about learning property management and tenant screening and cash flow analysis. About the mistakes I'd made and the lessons they'd taught me. About the slow, methodical process of building equity and leveraging it into the next purchase. About watching real estate investment tutorials at 2 a.m. after double shifts, about driving through neighborhoods looking for undervalued properties, about negotiating with sellers and contractors and property managers. My mother listened with her hand over her mouth, occasionally shaking her head in disbelief. My father asked questions, technical ones about financing and tax strategies, and I answered them all, watching his respect grow as he realized how sophisticated my approach had been. This wasn't luck or inheritance or anything handed to me. This was strategy executed over years, discipline maintained when it would have been easier to give up, vision sustained when everyone around me was blind to it. The building across from Tyler's new house, I said at one point. The 4-unit rental he'll drive past every time he visits. I bought that 14 months ago. I own the ground he'll walk on every time he crosses the street. My father almost smiled at that, a complicated expression mixing pride with concern. He's going to lose his mind. Probably, I agreed. But that's not my problem to manage. I'm not doing this to him. I'm just stopping the charade of pretending to be someone I'm not. We ate slowly, the conversation moving between logistics and emotions. My mother wanted to know if I was happy, if all this wealth had made my life better or just more complicated. I told her the truth, that it had given me security and options and the freedom to not be afraid of emergencies or uncertainties. That it had been lonely sometimes, carrying this secret, but that the loneliness was worth it for the independence it had bought me. My father wanted to know my plans, where I saw this going. I explained that the portfolio was mostly stable now, that I was focused on management and optimization rather than aggressive expansion. That eventually I might quit the call center and manage the properties full-time, or hire a team to do that while I consulted or mentored others the way Mr. Chen had mentored me. That I hadn't figured out all the details but I had the luxury of time to decide because the passive income gave me that freedom. Dessert came and went. Coffee was served. The restaurant began to empty as other diners finished their meals and drifted away. We stayed, occupying our corner table, working through 8 years of hidden truth in a single evening. And gradually, I saw my parents' shock transform into something else. Not quite pride, because the deception still stung, but a kind of awed respect. Their daughter, the one they'd worried about and pitted and tried to help, had been playing a completely different game all along. What do you need from us tomorrow? My father finally asked. At the reunion, when you reveal this, what's our role? Just don't act surprised, I said. I'm telling you tonight so you don't have to fake a reaction tomorrow. Be yourselves. Support me if you feel like you can. But I'm not asking you to take sides or defend me or anything like that. This is between Tyler and me, really. Everyone else is just going to be audience. My mother folded her napkin, a gesture she made when she'd reached a decision about something. I'm proud of you, she said firmly. I'm hurt that you didn't trust us enough to share this sooner, and we're going to need to talk more about that later. But I'm proud of what you've accomplished. And frankly, it's about time someone took Tyler down a peg. He's been insufferable for years, and your father and I have enabled it by not pushing back harder. Agreed, my father said. Though I suspect tomorrow is going to be one of the most uncomfortable days of my life. Mine too, I admitted. But I'd rather be uncomfortable and honest than comfortable and invisible. We settled the check, which my father tried to pay until I quietly informed him I was expensing it to the LLC as a business meal. That detail seemed to delight him in a strange way, this proof that I understood how money actually worked. We walked out together into the cool desert evening, the resort grounds lit by carefully placed landscape lighting that made everything look like a stage set. My parents were staying in the main building. I walked them to the elevator bank, hugging them both tightly. Thank you for listening, I said. And for not making me feel worse about keeping this secret. We'll process it all eventually, my mother said. Right now I'm just trying to wrap my head around the fact that my daughter is a real estate mogul. Hardly a mogul, I protested. Just someone who made good decisions consistently. That's exactly what a mogul would say, my father replied with a small smile. I watched them enter the elevator, my mother still holding the presentation book I'd told her to keep, to review later, to use as proof if anyone questioned the truth of what I was about to reveal. The doors closed and I stood alone in the elegant lobby, feeling lighter than I had in years. The first hurdle was cleared. My parents knew. Tomorrow, everyone else would. I drove back to my hotel through mostly empty streets, the city settled into its evening rhythm. In my room, I changed into comfortable clothes and sat on the bed with my laptop, checking messages from my property managers. Routine updates, nothing urgent. A toilet repair in Tempe. A lease renewal in Scottsdale. The ordinary machinery of my business operating smoothly across state lines while I prepared to detonate my family's understanding of reality. Sleep came easier than I expected, exhaustion from emotional intensity overriding the anxiety about tomorrow. I dreamed of buildings and bank statements and my brother's face frozen in shock, his mouth opening and closing with no sound emerging. When I woke at 6, sunlight was already heating the desert, promising another day of relentless warmth. The family reunion officially started at 10 with a brunch at the resort. Casual dress, the invitation had specified. Come hungry and ready to catch up. I showered and dressed in a sundress and sandals, pulled my hair back, applied minimal makeup. The presentation book stayed in my bag. I wouldn't need it for the initial gathering. The reveal would come later, during the afternoon activities when Tyler had planned to show everyone a video tour of his new house. That was when I'd speak up. That was when I'd ask if anyone wanted to see the properties I owned nearby. That was when everything would shift. I ate breakfast at the hotel, scrambled eggs and toast I barely tasted, then drove to the resort arriving precisely at 10. The brunch was set up on an outdoor terrace, long tables covered with food and drinks, families mingling and laughing. I saw Tyler and Vanessa immediately, holding court near the mimosa bar, both of them effortlessly charismatic. My parents stood off to the side talking with my aunt and uncle, and when they saw me, my mother's face did something complicated, a mix of normal greeting and weighted knowledge. Tyler waved me over, surprisingly enthusiastic. Nicole. Perfect timing. I was just telling everyone about the house tour this afternoon. We're going to drive over, show everyone the property, maybe have some champagne to celebrate. You're coming, right? Wouldn't miss it, I said, accepting a glass of orange juice from a passing server. Great. And hey, I've got something cool to show everyone after. Vanessa and I did a whole driving tour yesterday of the neighborhood, filmed some of the other houses, the amenities, the views. Really gives you a sense of what we're investing in. That sounds wonderful, I said, meaning every word in ways he couldn't possibly understand. The morning passed in the usual family reunion pattern. Distant relatives asking about my life, me giving vague positive answers. Children running between tables. Older family members complaining about the heat. Tyler circulating with Vanessa attached to his arm, both of them glowing with the anticipation of their big moment. Around 1 o'clock, Tyler called everyone to gather. "All right, folks. Time for the house tour. We've got a few cars available. It's about 15 minutes from here. Everyone who wants to come, meet at the valet stand in 5 minutes." I rode with my parents, neither of us speaking much during the drive. Tyler and Vanessa led the caravan in their Mercedes, and we followed along with a handful of other family members in various rental cars. The route took us through increasingly upscale neighborhoods, the houses growing larger and more impressive, the desert landscaping more elaborate and expensive. Then we turned onto Tyler Street, and I recognized it immediately. Not just from the address Vanessa had mentioned, but because I'd driven this exact route yesterday during my property survey. There, third house on the left, was Tyler's new purchase. Adobe style, sprawling, impressive. And there, directly across the street, was my 4-unit rental building. Modest by comparison, older construction, but well-maintained and fully occupied. We parked in Tyler's driveway and along the curb. The house was still technically in escrow, but Tyler had gotten permission to show family before the closing. He unlocked the front door with the enthusiasm of a game show host revealing a prize. Everyone filed in, oohing and awing at the soaring ceilings, the gourmet kitchen, the master suite with views of the mountains. I walked through slowly, genuinely appreciating the space. It was beautiful, exactly the kind of trophy property someone like Tyler would choose. But I kept thinking about the numbers. $2.2 million purchase price. Probably $8,000 monthly in total costs. A massive financial commitment for a vacation home they'd use maybe 6 weeks a year. Across the street, my 4-unit building generated $4,200 monthly in rent. It had cost $680,000. In the time it would take Tyler to pay off this house, my building would have generated over $1 million in rental income and appreciated substantially in value. Different strategies, different philosophies, different definitions of success. We gathered in the backyard, which was admittedly stunning. Infinity pool, outdoor kitchen, covered patio with ceiling fans and heating elements for cooler evenings. Tyler stood at the center, Vanessa beside him, both of them beaming. "So this is it," he announced. "Our Scottsdale dream. A place to build memories, to host family, to enjoy everything this area offers. And I wanted to share a little video Vanessa and I made yesterday." He pulled out his phone and connected it to a portable speaker he'd brought. The video started playing on his phone screen, though the group was small enough that we could all see. Footage of the neighborhood, sweeping shots of other luxury homes, commentary from Tyler about property values and investment potential. Then the camera panned across the street, and there was my building. "Now not everything in the neighborhood is quite as nice as our place," Tyler's voice narrated on the video. "See, across the street, that's more of a working-class rental situation. Probably college kids or people just starting out. But the neighborhood association is working on updating standards, so eventually even properties like that will have to level up or sell out." The video continued, but I'd stopped listening. Tyler had filmed my property, dismissed it, made assumptions about it, never imagining for a second that the person he'd been subtly mocking for years owned the very building he was casually denigrating. The video ended. Everyone clapped politely. Tyler launched into more details about the house, the closing timeline, their furniture plans. And I stood there holding my glass of champagne, feeling the moment arrive with crystalline clarity. This was it. This was when I stopped being invisible. I waited for a pause in Tyler's monologue, then spoke clearly enough that everyone would hear. "Tyler, that building across the street, the rental property you mentioned in your video?" He turned to me, slightly annoyed at the interruption. "Yeah, what about it?" "That's mine," I said simply. "I own it. Have for 14 months now." The silence that followed was absolute. Tyler's face went through a series of expressions so quickly they almost blurred together. Confusion first, like he'd misheard. Then a forced laugh, assuming I was joking. Then uncertainty when he realized no one else was laughing. His eyes darted to Vanessa, who looked equally bewildered, then to my parents, who stood with carefully neutral expressions that suddenly made sense to him as prior knowledge. "What are you talking about?" Tyler finally managed, his voice tight. I set down my champagne glass on the patio table with deliberate care. The 4-unit building directly across the street. Unit 203 specifically, the one with the blue door. I purchased the property in July of last year for $680,000. It's currently valued at approximately $790,000. Monthly rental income is $4,200, expenses run about $1,700, so it nets around $2,500 monthly after everything. The specificity of the numbers landed like physical blows. Tyler opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "You're lying." "I'm not," I said calmly. "I can show you the deed if you'd like. It's in my portfolio documentation, along with the other 46 properties I own across Arizona." Vanessa made a sound, something between a gasp and a laugh. 46 properties? Nicole, this isn't funny. Whatever point you're trying to make, just stop. I reached into my bag and withdrew my phone, pulling up the portfolio spreadsheet I kept in cloud storage. I held it out so the screen was visible to anyone close enough to see. Rows and rows of addresses, purchase prices, current values. 47 properties total, I corrected. This one across the street is number 32 chronologically. Would you like me to walk you through the acquisition strategy, or would you prefer to just see the summary numbers? My uncle Robert, who'd been standing near the pool, stepped closer. "Nicole, are you seriously saying you own almost 50 rental properties?" "Real estate portfolio," I clarified. "Mix of residential, commercial, and vacation rentals. Total property value is currently $38.2 million. Net equity after debt is about $26.6 million. Monthly net income after all expenses is $31,000. Tyler's face had gone pale. Not just surprised anymore, but visibly shaken, like the ground beneath him had suddenly revealed itself to be quicksand. "This is insane. Where would you even get the money for one property, let alone 47? You work at a call center." "I do," I confirmed. $16 an hour, been there 8 years. That job covers my personal living expenses and maintains appearances. The real estate income gets reinvested into acquiring more properties. I started with a duplex in Phoenix when I was 25, saved $12,000 for the down payment by working double shifts and living on practically nothing. Built from there, one property at a time. Vanessa was shaking her head, arms crossed defensively. "Even if this is true, which I seriously doubt, there's no way you did this alone. Someone must have helped you. Given you money or co-signed or something." "My mentor, Mr. Douglas Chin, co-signed my first mortgage," I acknowledged. "After that, I qualified on my own based on the rental income from previous properties. No family money. No inheritance. No secret trust fund. Just discipline and strategy." My cousin Jennifer, who'd always been kind to me despite Tyler's influence, spoke up tentatively. "Can you prove this?" "I'm not saying I don't believe you, but this is a lot to process." I pulled the messenger bag fully onto my shoulder. I brought documentation. Complete portfolio summary, corporate records, property photos, financial statements. Everything anyone would need to verify this is legitimate. My parents reviewed it all last night. They can confirm I'm not making this up. All eyes turned to my mother and father. My mother nodded slowly. She showed us everything. Tax returns, bank statements, property deeds. It's real. All of it. Tyler looked at our parents with something approaching betrayal. "You knew? Since when?" "Since last night," my father said quietly. "She wanted to tell us first, privately. And I've reviewed the documents. As an accountant, I can confirm the numbers are consistent and legitimate. Your sister has built something remarkable. The word remarkable seemed to hit Tyler like a slap. His jaw clenched. Vanessa put a hand on his arm, but he shook it off, taking a step toward me. Why? He demanded. Why hide this? Why let everyone think you were struggling if you've been secretly rich this whole time? I'm not rich, I said evenly. I'm wealthy. There's a difference. And I didn't hide it to deceive anyone. I hid it because I was building something for myself, not for approval or recognition. And because I knew if you found out, you'd do exactly what you're doing right now. Make it about yourself and your feelings instead of acknowledging what I've accomplished. That's not fair, Tyler shot back. I've spent years trying to help you, offering advice, trying to get you better jobs, and the whole time you've been playing some weird game, pretending to be poor. You haven't tried to help me, I said, and my voice held an edge now, years of suppressed frustration finally finding release. You've spent years reminding me that you're successful and I'm not. Every family dinner, every holiday, every casual conversation becomes a chance for you to display your achievements while dismissing mine. You called me the family charity case on Instagram 2 weeks ago. In front of hundreds of people. That wasn't help. That was cruelty dressed up as humor. The assembled family members had gone completely silent, watching this confrontation unfold with the horrified fascination of witnesses to a car accident. My Aunt Patricia looked uncomfortable. My Uncle Robert seemed torn between intervening and staying out of it. Several cousins had their phones out, though whether to record or just to have something to do with their hands, I couldn't tell. Vanessa found her voice again, defensive and sharp. Tyler has always supported you. We've both supported you. We included you in things, invited you places, tried to make you feel like part of our success. You patronized me, I corrected. There's a difference. You invited me to watch you succeed, to be the contrast that made your achievements look even more impressive. The struggling sister who makes the successful brother look even better by comparison. Tyler's hands balled into fists at his sides. So what is this then? Revenge? You show up here and drop this bomb just to humiliate me in front of everyone? I showed up here, I said slowly, to stop hiding. To stop letting you define me by what you think I lack. To correct the record and move forward as my actual self instead of the version you find convenient. If you feel humiliated, that's because you're realizing the story you've been telling about me was never true. My father stepped forward slightly, not quite between us, but close enough to signal this needed to de-escalate. Tyler, maybe we should all take a breath. This is a lot to process, but it doesn't have to be a fight. Doesn't have to be a fight? Tyler's voice was rising now, control slipping. Dad, she's been lying to all of us for years. Letting us feel sorry for her, letting us try to help her, and the whole time she's been laughing at us behind our backs. I've never laughed at you, I said firmly. I've lived my life quietly while you've lived yours loudly. The only difference is now you know my life isn't what you assumed it was. Vanessa was staring at her phone now, and I realized she was probably looking up property records, trying to verify my claims. Her face changed as she found something, shock replacing skepticism. Oh my God. Tyler, there's a Hayes Property Holdings registered in Arizona. Multiple properties listed. I'm looking at the county assessor's website right now. Tyler grabbed her phone, scrolling frantically, his face cycling through emotions too fast to track. Denial, anger, disbelief, and underneath it all, something that looked like grief. The loss of his identity as the successful sibling, the smart one, the one who'd made it while his sister struggled. How much? He asked finally, his voice hollow. How much are you actually worth? I'd known this question would come. Net worth is complicated with real estate because it depends on current market valuations and debt positions. But conservatively, around $26 million in equity. Liquid assets are lower because most capital is tied up in properties, but monthly cash flow is substantial. The number hung in the air. Tyler's new house, his promotion, his corner office and equity package, all of it suddenly seemed smaller in comparison. Not unsuccessful, but not the unquestionable triumph he'd believed it to be. His little sister, the one he'd mocked and pitted, had quietly accumulated wealth that dwarfed his own. My Uncle Robert cleared his throat. Nicole, I think I speak for everyone when I say we're stunned. But also, this is incredible. How did you even learn to do this? I turned to him, grateful for a question that wasn't hostile. I had a mentor, Mr. Chen. He taught me everything about property evaluation, financing, tenant management, all of it. And I studied constantly. Books, courses, analyzing deals until I could spot good investments almost instinctively. It took years to develop the skills, but once I had them, it was just a matter of consistent execution. My cousin Jennifer was smiling now, genuine admiration on her face. That's actually amazing. I'm in commercial real estate too, much smaller scale, but I know how hard this is. The fact that you built this while working full-time at another job, that's seriously impressive. Thank you, I said, and meant it. Her validation mattered because it came from understanding rather than obligation. Tyler was still staring at Vanessa's phone, scrolling through property records. Some of these purchases were years ago. You've been doing this since your 20s? His voice carried a note I'd never heard before. Not quite respect, but maybe the beginning of recognition that his sister was someone he'd fundamentally misunderstood. Since I was 25, I confirmed. The duplex in Phoenix was my first purchase. Mr. Chen co-signed because I had no credit history for investment property. I lived in one unit, rented the other, saved every penny of the rental income plus my own earnings. 18 months later I had enough for the next down payment. My mother had tears in her eyes again, but they looked different than last night. Pride mixing with regret. All those years we worried about you. Offered to help with rent or bills. And you were building this. I needed you to worry, I said gently. I needed everyone to see what they expected to see. If I'd been driving a nice car or wearing expensive clothes or talking about my investments, questions would have come up. People would have wanted to know details, give advice, get involved. I needed space to figure this out on my own terms. Tyler finally looked up from the phone, and something in his expression had shifted. Still hurt, still angry, but underneath it I saw something else. Maybe the beginning of understanding, or at least the collapse of certainty. I really didn't know, he said quietly. Any of it. I thought you were actually struggling. I know you did, I said. That was the point. I let you think that because it was easier than dealing with your reaction to the truth. What does that mean? You think I would have been unsupportive? I held his gaze steadily. Tyler, you posted on Instagram that I'm a charity case. You've made jokes about my job at every family gathering for years. You've used me as a cautionary tale, the example of what happens when you don't have ambition or talent. Yes, I think if you'd known the truth, you would have found ways to diminish it or explain it away or make it somehow less significant than your own success. Because you've built your identity on being the successful one, and me being successful too threatens that narrative. He flinched, and I saw the truth of my words land even as he wanted to reject them. Vanessa was looking at him differently now, maybe seeing him through new eyes, recognizing patterns she'd ignored or enabled. My parents stood close together, my mother's hand in my father's, both of them processing this confrontation they'd probably hoped to avoid. My Aunt Patricia broke the tense silence. Well, I think this calls for a celebration. Nicole, honey, this is wonderful news. You should be proud. We all should be proud. The sentiment was generous, an attempt to redirect the energy from confrontation to congratulation. Several family members murmured agreement, though the atmosphere remained strained. Tyler stood frozen, unable to join in the celebration, unable to walk away. Vanessa touched his arm again, and this time he didn't shake her off, just stared at nothing while his carefully constructed worldview reorganized itself. I picked up my bag and addressed the group. I know this is a lot to process. I didn't plan this to hurt anyone or cause drama. I just needed you all to know the truth. If anyone has questions or wants to see the documentation, I'm happy to share. But I think maybe Tyler and I need a moment to talk privately. My mother nodded quickly. Yes, good idea. Everyone, let's give them some space. There's still food back at the resort, and that pool looks inviting. The family began dispersing, some reluctantly, others clearly relieved to escape the tension. My parents lingered for a moment. My father squeezed my shoulder. "You did well," he said quietly. My mother hugged me, whispering, "We love you both. Work this out if you can." Then they were gone, and it was just Tyler, Vanessa, and me standing in the backyard of his dream house, the afternoon sun beating down relentlessly. Vanessa looked between us, then made a decision. "I'll give you two a minute," she said, disappearing inside. Tyler walked to the edge of the pool and sat heavily on a lounge chair. I followed, taking a seat across from him, leaving space between us. For a long moment neither of us spoke. A bird called somewhere in the desert scrub beyond the property line. A neighbor's sprinkler system kicked on with a mechanical hiss. "I don't know what to say," Tyler finally admitted, his voice stripped of its usual confidence. "I feel like I don't even know who you are." "You never really tried to know," I said, not cruelly but honestly. "You decided who I was based on what you could see, and you never looked deeper." "That's not entirely fair," he protested weakly. "You deliberately hid all of this. How was I supposed to know what you wouldn't tell me?" "You weren't," I acknowledged. "But you also never asked. Never wondered if there might be more to my life than what I showed at family dinners. You just accepted the simple story because it was comfortable and made you feel superior." He rubbed his face with both hands. "Okay. Yeah. Maybe. I've been a jerk. Is that what you want to hear?" "I want you to understand," I said. "I didn't do this to compete with you or prove I'm better. I did it because I wanted financial security and independence. The fact that it contradicts your assumptions about me is incidental." "It doesn't feel incidental," he said. "It feels like you've been watching me show off for years, knowing the whole time that you had more than I did. That has to have been at least a little satisfying." I considered lying, softening it, but decided on truth. "Sometimes, yes. When you were particularly condescending or cruel, there were moments where I took satisfaction in knowing the reality you couldn't see. But mostly it was just lonely. Having this big part of my life I couldn't share. Hearing you make assumptions about my capabilities and not being able to correct them without revealing everything." Tyler looked at me, really looked, maybe for the first time in years. "The Instagram post. The charity case comment. That must have hurt." "It did," I confirmed. "That's actually what pushed me to finally do this. I realized I was tired of protecting your feelings at the expense of my own dignity." "I deleted it," he said. "Last night, after the cocktail party. Mom said something about it being mean, and I was defensive, but later I looked at it again and saw how it must have sounded to you. I took it down around midnight." "I appreciate that," I said, and meant it. "But Tyler, it wasn't just that one post. It's been years of casual dismissiveness. Death by 1,000 cuts." He nodded slowly. "I know. I can see it now, looking back. I've been using you as a prop in my own story. The struggling sister who makes my success look even better. That's messed up." The admission hung between us, fragile and significant. An opening towards something different, if we were both brave enough to walk through it. "So where do we go from here?" I asked. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I'm embarrassed. Humiliated, actually. Everyone just watched me find out my little sister is more successful than me, and I reacted like a child. Vanessa's probably in there questioning every story I've told her about our family dynamics. Maybe that's not a bad thing," I suggested carefully. "Maybe it's an opportunity to rebuild our relationship on something more honest. Do you even want a relationship with me?" The question came out vulnerable, uncertain. "After everything, would you rather just keep your distance?" I thought about it, weighing years of hurt against the possibility of change. "I don't want to be your prop or your charity case or your cautionary tale," I said. "But if you can see me as an actual person, as your sister who happens to have different strengths and a different path, then yes. I'd like us to have a real relationship. Tyler stood and walked to the pool's edge, staring down at his reflection in the still water. I've spent so much energy maintaining this image of myself as the successful one. The achiever. The one who made it. Finding out you've quietly surpassed me, it's like the floor just disappeared. I haven't surpassed you, I said. We're successful in different ways. You've built a career, climbed a corporate ladder, earned recognition and respect in your field. That's real and valuable. I've built assets that generate passive income. Neither is better than the other. They're just different. But your way seems smarter, he said. More sustainable. You're not dependent on staying employed or pleasing bosses. Your income keeps flowing regardless. It came with trade-offs, I reminded him. Years of living in a tiny apartment, wearing thrift store clothes, working a job I found boring to maintain cover. You've gotten to enjoy your success, travel, buy nice things. Different priorities, different costs. He turned back to face me. Can I see it? The full documentation? Not because I doubt you, but because I want to understand what you built. I retrieved the messenger bag and handed him the presentation book. He opened it carefully, like handling something precious, and began reading through page by page. I watched his face as he processed the information, saw him calculating, analyzing, recognizing the strategy behind each acquisition. His business education allowed him to appreciate the sophistication of what I'd done, even as it dismantled his assumptions about my capabilities. This is actually brilliant, he said after several minutes. The way you've diversified across property types and locations, the debt leveraging strategy, the timing of purchases relative to market cycles. Nicole, this is professional-grade real estate investment. I had a good teacher, I said. And I spent thousands of hours learning. It wasn't luck or natural talent. It was deliberate skill development. Vanessa emerged from the house, tentative. She'd been crying, mascara slightly smudged. Everything okay out here? Tyler showed her the book. Look at this. Really look at it. My sister built a $26 million real estate empire while working at a call center. It's actually incredible. Vanessa sat beside him, and together they went through the pages. I saw her expression shift from skepticism to amazement as the reality sank in. Nicole, I don't even know what to say. This is so far beyond anything I imagined. I know, I said. That was intentional. She looked up at me, and I saw genuine remorse in her eyes. I've been awful to you. All those comments about your clothes and your job and your life. I thought I was being sympathetic, but I was actually just being condescending. I'm so sorry. The apology surprised me more than Tyler's had. Vanessa's cruelty had always seemed more casual, less intentional, but no less hurtful. Thank you, I said. I appreciate that. Can I ask a weird question? Vanessa said. Do you even need to work at the call center anymore? With this kind of income, why keep a job you don't enjoy? Habit partly, I admitted. But also, it maintains the separation between my two lives. If I quit and started managing properties full-time, people would ask questions. Want details. Right now, most people assume I'm barely scraping by, and that gives me privacy. Though I suppose that's all changing now. Tyler closed the book and handed it back to me. What happens next? You obviously can't keep this secret anymore, not after today. How does your life change? I'm not sure yet, I said honestly. I might quit the call center, manage the properties more directly. Or hire a full management team and consult. Or mentor other investors the way Mr. Chen mentored me. I've got options now, and I can take time to figure out what I actually want instead of just what's necessary. Will you stay in Portland? He asked, and something in his voice suggested the answer mattered to him. Probably, I said. Most of my properties are here in Arizona, but my life is in Portland. My apartment building, my routines. Though I might buy something nicer to live in. Stop pretending to be broke now that the secret's out. We sat together in the backyard as the afternoon stretched toward evening, the heat finally beginning to ease. We talked about logistics and feelings, about the years of miscommunication and missed connection, about the possibility of building something better going forward. It wasn't a complete healing. Years of damage don't reverse in one conversation. But it was a beginning, an acknowledgement that change was possible if we both committed to it. Eventually we returned to the resort where the rest of the family had gathered by the pool. Word had clearly spread about my revelation because people looked at me differently now. Not with pity or dismissiveness, but with curiosity and respect. My cousin Jennifer wanted to talk about property management strategies. My uncle Robert asked about my mentor and how I'd found him. Even relatives who'd barely acknowledged me at previous gatherings suddenly found me interesting. My parents watched from nearby lounge chairs, pride and relief evident on their faces. Whatever complexity they felt about my secrecy, they seemed genuinely happy that the truth was finally known. My mother caught my eye and smiled, a complicated expression that said we'd talk more later, but for now she was just glad the confrontation was over. Tyler and Vanessa stayed close, not hovering but present, engaging when others asked questions, occasionally adding context or asking their own questions. Tyler seemed lighter somehow, as if releasing the burden of superiority had freed up energy he'd been spending on maintaining his image. Vanessa was quieter than usual, processing and recalibrating her understanding of family dynamics. As the sun set and the string lights around the pool area flickered on, someone suggested a toast. My father stood, raising his glass of wine. "To Nicole," he said, his voice carrying across the gathered family. "Who taught us that the quietest person in the room might be the one with the most to say? We're proud of you, sweetheart. Proud of what you've built and proud of your courage in finally sharing it with us." Everyone raised their glasses. "To Nicole," they chorused, and I felt something shift fundamentally. Not just in how they saw me, but in how I saw myself. No longer hiding, no longer diminished, no longer playing small to accommodate someone else's need to feel large. Later that evening, after most family members had drifted away to their rooms or to explore the resort, I found myself alone by the pool with Tyler. We sat side by side on the edge, feet dangling in the water, the desert night cool and clear above us. "I meant what I said earlier," Tyler said quietly. "About wanting to rebuild our relationship. But I don't really know how. We've spent so many years in these roles, successful brother and struggling sister. Without that dynamic, I don't know how we relate to each other. Maybe we start by just being honest," I suggested. "No performing, no competing, no trying to prove anything. Just two people who happen to be siblings, figuring out who we actually are to each other." "That sounds hard," he admitted. "Probably," I agreed. "But it's got to be better than what we've been doing." He nodded, staring at his reflection in the illuminated pool water. "For what it's worth, I'm genuinely impressed by what you've accomplished. Not just the money or the properties, but the discipline and vision it took to build this. I don't think I could have done it." "You could have if you'd wanted to," I said. "You're smart and capable. You just chose a different path." "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe I needed the validation that comes with corporate success. The title, the recognition, the visible markers of achievement. You clearly didn't need any of that." "I needed it," I corrected. "I just wasn't willing to compromise my strategy to get it. The validation I wanted was from myself, proving I could do something everyone assumed I couldn't." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, the pool water lapping gently at our legs. Then Tyler spoke again. "Can I ask you something? That building across from my house, did you buy it because you knew I was looking in this neighborhood?" I considered lying, making it seem like pure coincidence, but decided honesty was more important. "No. I bought it 14 months ago based on the numbers and location. But when you mentioned at dinner that you'd bought a house in Scottsdale and described the neighborhood, I realized it was the same area. That's when I decided it was time to tell everyone. The coincidence felt like the universe giving me a sign." "The universe has a weird sense of humor," he said with a slight smile. "Apparently," I agreed. We stayed by the pool until the resort staff began shutting down for the night, dimming lights and stacking chairs. Walking back toward the main building, Tyler stopped me with a hand on my arm. "Thank you," he said. "For not giving up on me completely. For still being willing to try." "You're my brother," I said simply. "That has to mean something, even when it's complicated." He hugged me then, quickly and awkwardly, but sincerely. "I'll do better," he promised. "I can't undo the past, but I can try to be different going forward." "That's all any of us can do," I said. The next morning I checked out of my hotel early, driving away from Scottsdale as the desert came alive with morning light. My phone buzzed with messages from family members, some congratulatory, some asking questions, all adjusting to the new reality of who I was. I'd answer them eventually, but for now I just wanted to drive, to process, to feel the weight of revelation settling into something manageable. I stopped at 3 properties on the way to the airport, walking around them, seeing them with fresh eyes now that they were no longer secrets. These buildings represented more than money or investment strategy. They represented my vision made real, my belief in myself manifested in brick and mortar and monthly rent checks. They represented the person I'd become while everyone was looking elsewhere. At the airport, waiting for my flight to Portland, I got a text from Mr. Chin. "Heard from your property managers that family knows now. How did it go?" I typed back, "Better than expected. Hard, but worth it. Thank you for teaching me that wealth whispers but truth sometimes needs to speak up." His response came quickly. "Proud of you, Nicole. Ready for the next chapter?" I smiled, boarding my flight with my messenger bag lighter now that it only carried the presentation book instead of the secret it had protected for so many years. Ready for the next chapter? Yes. More than ready. Because the next chapter would be written as my whole self, not a carefully curated version designed to hide success from people who couldn't handle it. The plane lifted off, Portland waiting ahead, and I leaned back in my seat feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Free. Not from obligation or family or complexity, but from the exhausting work of being less than I was. From this point forward, people could like me or not like me based on the truth instead of assumptions. And that freedom, more than any property or bank balance, felt like the real wealth I'd been building toward all along. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.